Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. My name is Adam Russell.
This is Nick Gambarian.
Hi, everyone. It's Mike Forster, reeling after 1 week away from the Andor finale that Nick and I covered extensively, and we probably could have talked for another hour. We really were. We could have talked for another hour easily.
Dude, and, I'm feeling like Cyril on the bed with his mom yapping in the other room right now. That's how I feel about Andor being over.
Yeah. Well, what's also been interesting is how many people I know. If our friend Brooke is listening, she was very upset that I posted a spoiler on Saturday morning, which she was upset about. Which I said, hey.
Oh, wait, on Saturday?
That's what I'm saying. Dude. I'm like, I don't know. Is it 48 hours? Is it 96 hours? Like, what are we doing?
So 4 weeks? Brooke,
yeah, I think it was together. Yeah, I think it was on Friday. You know what I mean? So I get it. But now I got a lot of people that are not as intensive Star Wars fans that are now watching it or getting into it, and people are just really into this show. You know what I mean?
People do love it. You know, what's interesting about this is I think since we're now, what is it, 3 years into Disney Plus? Right? 3.5, something like that?
No, it came out in 2019.
Yeah,
it was 2019.
Yeah,
We're 6 years into it. Time's an illusion, the pandemic. I think we all settled into this idea that it's on a streaming service. Everyone can get it immediately. The spoiler window is pretty short. It's like it went from like maybe a day to now it's just like the next morning max, right? And like we're all pretty comfortable with it, and we know I'm just going to stay off Instagram or TikTok or whatever until I can go sit on my couch or get my iPad out and watch it. It's fine. Because it's not like a theater. It's not like you have to buy tickets and make time or whatever. But that said, back to, Tony Gilroy's point before this aired, the idea of like essentially a movie coming out every week for 4 weeks, it's a lot tougher. I think it was like a rock and a hard place situation where it's like we have to cover it right away because we have such limited time as podcasters. We have to start pushing our stuff out there, but also people are going to be way behind. Like I still see the numbers going up on the first 3 episodes. Like all of them right now are still climbing as people are catching up.
Right.
So it's an interesting dynamic. Well,
and word is getting out that if you're not a huge Star Wars fan, it's still great television. And I think a lot of people, I've had a lot of friends who are outside of the Star Wars sphere going, I heard Andor is amazing. I don't know that much about Star Wars, but I hear other people who aren't huge Star Wars fans love Andor because of its political thrillerness. It's great. Jump on where you can. What also has been interesting is the amount of people who didn't almost, if you're not like us, ain't like us, rewatching Rogue One every like 2 months. You know what I mean? If you're like me, which I do, or it's a comfort movie, a lot of people forgot that Cassian Andor was the guy in Rogue One.
What?
Trust me, I have casual friends who are like, what do I watch after Andor? And I go, dude, Andor season 3 is Rogue One. And they're like, oh, right. It's the, and I'm like, you didn't. Wow. But again, if you watched Rogue One 4 or 5 years ago and didn't rewatch it, you might have literally forgotten that.
Because he's like co-lead, like Jin's kind of the lead.
Jin, because on all the marketing, it's been Jyn Erso. It's interesting.
So did you guys watch it immediately after? We were texting about this, I think, right?
I got like halfway through Rogue One.
Yeah.
And then the next day finished it. And then I said this last week because Gabe Estrada gave me the idea to directly after Rogue One watch just the Rebel scenes from A New Hope.
Sure.
Just to get like the actual like quickness of it all. Yeah. It was pretty cool.
And saying this, of course, too, like Andor is better than Rogue One.
It is, isn't that what
you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to say that, but I don't know. It's like the dialogue is wittier, the dialogue is sharper. All in all, I mean, I think I like Rogue One as a rewatchability. I think Rogue One will definitely still be it for me, but no, Andor is it's a better written show.
I mean, it's like Tony Gilroy Andor season 2 is his third album. Like he's grown up,
Sure.
he's a better songwriter. He's like he knows how to nail the hooks, and it's a brand new studio, everything's sparkling, sounds awesome. Like
Yeah.
it
Yep.
has that maturity.
Yep.
Did you
It is
notice? I saw this on Threads or something. Someone was kind of clickbaity about the thumbnail for Rogue One has Cassian in the front right now.
Right.
And someone's
Changed
like, this makes
back.
me so mad, and didn't explain anything. So then, of course, they got a bunch of comments being like, why does this make you mad? What's going on? And it's like, Jin's the main character. I'm like, okay, rage bait. So it is funny that they did that, though. And it is like the #1 movie on Disney Plus, though,
As it should be.
That's true. Strategy, baby.
We're going to get into this quite a bit deeper about how the characters develop over the course of Andor into Rogue One, and we're going to talk a little bit about animation too. There are, a lot of these characters in this series span, most of their lives, quite a bit of Star Wars. Saw is one of like the longest running characters in all of Star Wars, at least this period. So we're going to talk about that pretty in depth. But if you're watching on Instagram, come over and watch us on YouTube. We're going to end this Instagram stream here in a minute. And then follow us on your podcatcher of choice. Do that. Get the audio, or just watch us on YouTube. Press the follow button. Do all the things people ask.
Subscribe, hit the thing, the this.
And then when we're done with that character stuff, we're going to talk about what the title of this episode says, the Gilroy effect. We'll get into how that long-spanning kind of storytelling also enhances this entire 50 years of films and animation and everything. We'll talk about A New Hope, Rebels, and Rogue One and beyond. And then we'll touch a little bit on what Mike and I have been really stirring the social media pot with, talking about what Andor has done to the fandom, how it's changed expectations. And some of that's good, some of it's not as good for the mental health. So we're going to get into that and maybe talk about what this means now for our expectations for future projects, the handful of things that are still on the slate, Dawn of the Jedi, Starfighter, New Jedi Order. It's going to be fun. People are probably going to get pissed too, as is tradition. So people on Instagram, we'll see you on YouTube. Let's move on. All right, you want to talk about Cassian or Mon Mothma first? Because this is almost Mothma, a Star Wars story as well.
If we had a soundbite for what we would hit at this, what would you make it be? If we had a bumper, what do you think it would be? Nick?
My mind went directly to Perrin saying something stupid. I don't know.
Why does everything have to be so sad and boring?
I was thinking, you're here, and you're ready to fight.
That's it. With a little music cue, Jason.
Sync it up.
If you get a wild hair.
Sure, exactly.
Get that one dialed in.
Well, let's talk about the belle of the ball right here. Let's talk about Cassian Andor. I think he's the topic of discussion, the topic of everyone's thumbnails.
Real talk.
Let's do that.
The thing I'll say this first, because I was also going back through Rogue One, taking notes for this. His first scene where he really, I don't know, the first scene where he's like really, you feel him in the rebellion. He's in the world of Star Wars that we know. He's in the war room. Mon Mothma's there. They're interrogating or kind of briefing whatever Jin, right? The way he talks to Jin, his tone, and everything about him, it's just a little different. And that works. That's fine because some time has passed and Andor really skips through time. But it works great. It works really, really great. And the way they wove Andor straight into the beginning of Rogue One is great. But it is different. It's like the switch gets flipped every few episodes in Andor, and then it's almost like a huge breaker switch gets flipped for him to become the person that he is in Rogue One. Have you guys, in the little bit that you've watched since the finale, did you notice that as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the way I like contextualize it is just that he has a little bit of that Luthen paranoia
Mm-hmm.
about Jin. So, because
Yeah.
it is tonally different if you're thinking about episode 12 of Andor going directly into Rogue One and how he is. I think the spirit is there. I think they did a good job of giving him the rebel spirit and by the end of the series, but he's a little bit more cold and like discerning in the beginning of Rogue One. So I would just say that he's more like focused because we have to remember the breakneck speed that is happening from episode 11 to A New Hope at this point. Um, it's a matter of days. So I guess the way he is speaking to Jin, I could, like I said, contextualize it as him being paranoid about this new person who's kind of their, I don't know, like their, to use the term axis, like Jin is the only way to get to Galen at this point, to get
Mm-hmm.
to the Death Star. So they have to figure out if she's for real or not.
That was one of the things that I put in the notes. How he, at the beginning of Rogue One, he's a full blown rebel captain, but he's still full of the distrust and suspicion. You know, at the beginning of the movie, killing friendlies that are loose ends, just like Luthen. But then Jin earns his trust, and ultimately, the end of his character arc is where he can trust this person enough, and he's invested enough in the rebellion that he gives his own life. He goes in knowing he's not coming out of Scarif.
I think from the perspective of rewatching Rogue One was like, I remember when I first watched Rogue One. It's difficult to say. There was a part of me that almost wondered like where Cassian actually was fitting in with the rebellion. Like, was he just muscle? Was he a mercenary? Was
Mm,
he someone that was basically kind of Han Soloing this whole thing where it was like he's going to get something out of it, right? And if you go all the way back to now his story of, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old, all of that, you can kind of see that he almost has stumbled into rebellion basically from everything that was just taken from him,
right.
which is interesting, right? Because there isn't actually, it's like you don't know if he actually believes in the ideal that the empire needs to be stopped. You almost wonder if he's fighting for a singular purpose, which is to get revenge on all the things that have been taken from him.
Right.
And there's something about just the fact that a lot of that energy that he has of when he kills the corpos on Morlana the first time, it's by accident.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he's not actually trying to do that. And then when you think about it from a lot of different ways, a lot of the people that Cassian interacts with almost are by accident in some ways, which is an interesting thing of like him not being, he is willing to do whatever it takes for the rebellion at this point. But so is Saw. But why is Saw treated as dangerous? But Cassian is controlled chaos in his own way, right?
Yeah.
So it's the difference between the two of them, I think, is also interesting in the sense of, Saw has also lost things, but for him to also look at Jen and say, you're not the only one who's lost everything, we get a way bigger context of what he means by that.
Yeah. It's with Cassian. It seems more short sighted. Like he's thinking about the next step. Like, I got to get out of here.
Right.
I'm on the run because I just accidentally killed these two guys.
Right.
You know, the Rick's Road thing activates him. He says, yes, you know, kill me or take me in.
Right.
So he's down to go create some hell, but he doesn't fully sign up until well into season 2. And even then he's running his own show. He's going off on missions, he's insubordinate, he's like about to blow his chance to get promoted, and Bix comes to him. So
But
it is kind of incremental, like you're saying.
Yeah, but it's also for a selfish reason at some point. He
Right.
knows that if he's wanted, he's basically trying to blow enough of the Empire off his back to be able to escape. He's this like his like exit plan, right? And so in some ways, it's like if he can just do the one next thing, this little thing, if I can get rid of this person, then that's cutting off more and more ties to me so that I can just say they'll win the fight from here.
Right.
So it's a pretty interesting case of looking at him from that bigger perspective. And some of the comments in here I'm watching on both YouTube and Patreon, like they're nailing it. They're getting it. The idea of the Force healer that he's been collecting, right? He's been collecting memories and frustrations and pain and all of these things that are keeping him in the fight.
Until it reaches critical mass, essentially. It's just like a
Right.
death by 1,000 cuts.
Right.
I think part of it too, his dedication grows as the rebellion centralizes. Because I think
Right.
it's probably pretty hard in season 1 and the first few arcs of season 2, because you see when he's captured by a decentralized rebellion, sect. Like I
Right.
think that you see how the rebellion is less and less chaotic, and then he also is becoming more and more like, okay, I can't mess with Saw, I can't mess with Luthen. Like, the actual people who are going to make a difference are Mon Mothma, that whole crew on Yavin. So I think he kind of settles into that.
Did you guys know that was Tony Gilroy's son?
Who?
One
I
of
do
the
now.
rebels.
Which one?
The guy with like the long hair. He had kind of the sandy blonde
that's
long
right.
hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
One of the squabbling ones on
Yeah.
Yavin with the crashed
Yes.
ship, right?
Yep.
that's cool.
I saw an interview with him. I think it might have been with Ash. He said that he was at a dinner table or something with that son, and I don't know if it was another son or cousin or friend or whatever, and they were squabbling at the dinner table, and he's like, "Oh, this has to be in the show. Like, this sort of thing has to be in the show."
Right. Family dynamics. You got to make them believable.
That's amazing.
I get that. Yeah.
That's good. We could go on and on about Cassian. I think we should talk Mon Mothma though, because there's more than just the character arc. I really want to talk about the two speeches and the Rebels version and so on, because I think there's fun stuff there to kind of tease out. We all know at the beginning of season 1, she's just a straight up public servant politician, by the book, kind of take the high road, follow the political processes kind of person, right? Which is counter to what is not canon, because it's a deleted scene, the bit from that was removed from Revenge of the Sith, right, when she sits around with Padme and Bail and everybody, and they kind of form the Rebel Alliance. She's so much more, it's not like she's scared. Well, I would say here's the real world analog to it. She knows as a politician, she knows as someone who understands government, who understands the rule of law and the way you do things by the book so you can keep a government stable, that doing all the shit that the bad guys do isn't going to help. It's not going to fix anything. It's going to further destabilize things and get you in a situation where civil war becomes more and more likely. So she tries so hard from the beginning to just do it by the book. Diplomacy. She's pushing bills. She's calling for votes. She's trying to pass legislation to do things. And by the end of season 1, yes, she's in a darker place, but it isn't until the end of season 2 that she gets to the point where in one day, I'm going to lump the finale with Rebels season 3, episode 18, in a single day delivers this savage speech in front of the Senate, calling Palpatine a genocidal monster, escapes Coruscant with Cassian. The dude kills her driver, blasting the whole way, meets the Ghost crew, gets into 2 space battles with a bunch of starfighters and bombers, and then says to Hera, this little exchange, which is like really telling. Mon says, "I've begun to see the fight cannot be won in the Senate." Hera says, the stakes are a bit higher out here on the front lines. Instead of being outvoted, you're outgunned. Mon says, life or death. It's a new experience being on the run, but if that's what it takes. And then she goes and gives that galaxy-wide HoloNet speech. And we'll get into those speeches, but the way she talks there, yes, this is, it's all being retconned because this is a prequel to that. That's animation. There's all these different styles, but it is like a switch is flipped. And I imagine like the trauma of, like I've seen one gun fired in public at a person in my life, and it screwed me up for like a year. It like really screwed me up. So I think about someone in her position, knowing that like the government itself is trying to put her in jail. People are killing each other in pursuit of her. She finally gets out. Yes, I can see that switch flipping. But you go to the beginning, or I guess it's the end of or 2/3 of the way through Rogue One, when she's talking to Bail, and she says, despite what the others say, war is inevitable. So there's the 180 right there, from diplomacy, doing it by the book, to despite what the others say, war is inevitable. Like, who's left? If she was like, you think about her as a character, like, who's left? Everyone just talking shit to her in the Senate, like, this crap again with this woke bullshit. Like, who's left saying, oh, well, you don't have to go to war at the middle of Rogue One,
The Gormans.
The Gormans, yeah.
The Gormans, right. Yeah, we had an interesting discussion on our Discord, which you can join for $5 a month for a cup of coffee. Come join and get in these political discussions with us. Where we were kind of saying that Mon is representative of what would be traditional politics, where the idea is that everyone is in the same framework together. And what the Empire is doing is that, we had taught, I think it was Amaranth or someone was talking about it, of saying like the Gorman senator, the representative, was like, Mon, I can't be a part of this because I need to protect my people, because he is under the guise that the Empire also wants what's best for his people. And the Empire is like, we will blow up Scarif with with a whole army on it. We don't care. You know what I mean? And so like when your idea of you trying to fit inside of a fence, that the Empire is constantly moving and changing, and as they say, moving the goalposts, you have no choice but to eventually say war is inevitable, because your traditional policy of wanting to say we're approaching this diplomatically, they're not interested in that. And so from this standpoint, you do see her exhaust all of those options and get to the point where, again, she still calls someone like Saw Gerrera dangerous and unstable. Militant. But in the same, it's exactly what the Empire is doing, just on the opposite side of the fence.
Well, it's also, it's kind of problematic and mirrors a lot of real world stuff. But like when Mon is still playing politics, meanwhile the Emperor is leaving the Senate together to play politics, while like almost as a distraction while they're building the Death Star, because in a matter of days they're going to blow up a planet. They're going to be like, okay, it's done. Senate is done. We have fear. We could destroy an entire planet with a blast, so
and we've built it with a prison that we put there for people who are like jaywalking.
Yeah.
Like you're
exactly. So like to me it's like, go ahead, keep playing politics, because that's the actual distraction. You think that like whenever I hear people be like, we just got to vote in 4 years, just got to, like, all you've done is vote your entire life, and this you've gotten here, like while as a distraction, basically, while things have gotten worse, and like the actual evildoers, just like the Empire, are closer to the finish line than they ever have been. And it's like, just keep playing politics. Like run for run for the seats in 2 years. Like it doesn't matter. Like there's literally people breaking rules because it doesn't matter anymore. So keep talking about voting and like go in the Senate and blah blah blah. You need someone like Mon Mothma who'd be like, oh, it's Palpatine. It's Palpatine, and I'm on the run right now. I might not make it out of this building, and it's insane.
Mon Mothma is like, Emperor Palpatine is a genocidal maniac, and he's like, watch my Death Star go. He's like, I prove it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And we see in A New Hope, like the Senate is like in the first few minutes, the Senate is done. It's dissolved. You know, like it's that sort of thing is like cool. We after Revenge of the Sith, we kept the Senate around for 19 years basically while we were building the Death Star just to keep you distracted.
Yeah.
And now the Death Star's here, Senate's dissolved. Bye bye.
Right. And then Palpatine does it again on Hosnian Prime.
Yeah.
Because
You're like,
somehow Palpatine returned.
Because somehow sharks with freaking laser beams on their head.
Everything you guys are saying right now just reminds me of Nemec's conversation with Cassian when they first meet on Eldani, when he says, so much going on, so much to say, and all of it happening so quickly. The pace of oppression outstrips our ability to understand it, and that's the real trick of the Imperial thought machine. It's easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident.
Yep.
That sounds real as shit to me. So, yeah, God, that hurts me on the brain and emotions to talk about this. But going forward quite a few more years with Mon, looking at her in Return of the Jedi now in this new context, her tone, different actor, obviously, almost 50 years ago. Her tone, her cadence, everything about her voice, she's just exhausted. Like, she's still leading, she's still doing it.
Yep.
She's still devastated by all the death, talking about many Bothans died. She's just like at her end. So when it gets to Ahsoka in the beginning of the New Republic, Jason brought this up earlier, that she's just back to her diplomacy shit. Like, okay, we defeated them. Let's go back to trying to do this the right way. So much so that she's unwilling to even give Hera support, official support, without more evidence that Thrawn is actually back and that it's real. She needs concrete evidence. And it's, yes, that's how it should be. But it's also like, okay, well, they never stopped fucking around.
Well, isn't that politicking though, right? The idea that you can be like the warning shot, right? Like the latest thing that we're now bringing up is, you know, again, not a political podcast. Apparently we want to build a dome, our own Iron Dome, right? Using the money that we don't have. Apparently it's going to be called a Golden Dome, I guess. Sure. This makes sense for, I don't know how many people.
Great idea.
But the idea is you have to give in to the idea of like that someone's coming to attack you. So from Mon Mothma's standpoint, her role, her leadership, as she once again, to your point, Adam, starts politicking, she has to then say, if I give in to the idea that we didn't, all of the work that we've done, all of the death, all of the damage, all of the space battles, the resources lost didn't actually work, if Thrawn is indeed back, that's a lot of explaining for her to do. There's a lot of people who would ask more questions. You are classic politicking at this point to go, no, we're not going to do this, because then in some ways almost admits that they weren't as efficient as they led the New Republic to believe, that the threat is over.
Yeah.
The only thing
and she's afraid to do exactly what you're saying. She's just afraid to give in to flip and become exactly what she fought against, fear-mongering against a boogeyman, almost like a literal boogeyman, and just repeat the mistakes of the past.
Smooth-talking boogeyman.
It's tragic. It's so devastatingly tragic. Should we talk about these different speeches and how they work together? Or do you guys have more to say on that last bit?
Has there been any more like finality to them being different? Are they supposed to be the same? Are they supposed to be different? Like, I haven't really paid attention because it doesn't really affect things for me.
I have a thought about it, because it seems like Gilroy was given sort of a clean slate to write it however he wanted, whether or not it retconned the old one, whether or not it wiped away the rebel speech. The thing I read he said in classic unfiltered Tony Gilroy style, like, fuck, do I have to stick to that other speech, man? Like, I don't get to write one? Essentially is what he said. And they said, no, just go ahead. So we talked about this when we covered the third block. We couldn't remember if there was sort of a little bit of a speech at the beginning of the episode before the declaration of the Rebel Alliance later that ends the episode. Turns out that's exactly what happens. The Ghost crew sees the hollow of that Senate hearing going down. They hear her initial speech. Then when she meets up with them, they take her to Yavin. Or is it? I think maybe they're in orbit of Dantooine. She gives it, and then they end up on Yavin later, something like that. Anyway, that speech is fully separate. It doesn't overlap with, it doesn't conflict with the Andor one. That one stands alone, untouched. Here's the thing about the one at the beginning that they overheard. And Ezra even says, like, we saw your speech from the Senate. You really gave it to Palpatine, you know? So what they saw is for sure the same moment that we saw at the end of Andor. I won't read all of this. Jason, maybe you can throw this in the order that we'll talk about here. But I'll just review it really quickly. From Andor, she starts with I stand before you with a heavy heart, yada, yada. Difficult message. I believe we're in crisis. And she says the whole thing about the distance between what is known and what is said and what's known to be true has become an abyss. She talks about the death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. And then says the whole thing about the Gorman Plaza thing being an unprovoked genocide. So I was trying to figure out where the Rebels one could go in here between kind of the two sections, because she talks about heavy heart, the thing about truth, and then says, here's what happened on Gorman. People in this chamber don't believe it, but here's what happened. The monster screaming the loudest is Palpatine. That's where it ends, right? It doesn't really slip in there in a way that works, but it does work at the very end. So if you imagine that in all the back and forth, all the editing, the cutting away, cutting back, you know, out in the lobby, in the concourse where they're trying to get into her door, she could have said the Rebels part at the end, because the end of the Andor thing, again, is to recap, yes, genocide, and the truth has been exiled from this, and that truth has been exiled from this chamber. And the monster screaming the loudest, the monster we helped create, the monster who will come for us all soon enough, is Emperor Palpatine. And then if you come with Rebels right after, I name the Emperor himself for ordering the brutal attacks on the people of Gorman. Their peaceful world is one of countless systems helpless against the oppressive rule, against his oppressive rule. This massacre is proof that our self-appointed emperor is little more than a lying executioner imposing his tyranny under the pretense of security. We cannot allow this evil to stand. So,
yeah, that works real well.
Like, since she doesn't say Palpatine until the very end, I think it makes the most sense to tack that on the end and just assume we didn't hear it on screen in Andor.
I back that. That makes sense to me. Or the idea of just being like, once they get her to a safe spot, saying there's places that it never reached.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not to say that, like, you know, you might not hear every time there's a disaster, you might not hear what the president said, but you're going to hear a different soundbite at some other point of, right. You know what I mean? So it bothers me none that we've got essentially 3 different declarations here, because I think that they're all kind of amazing in their own way.
Yeah,
they're all 3. I mean, I think Andor's is definitely the pulpiest of them. I think that's clearly the audience. Like, it actually is cracking me up at the idea that we could hear this Andor one in Rebels. A show for kids, so they say, would be amazing, you know. But I think all 3 of them, the Rebels one is a banger, the one in Andor is a banger, the Declaration, the Rebel Alliance is awesome. I mean, it's great. She's a great character.
She's one of my favorite now. At the end of all this, really, truly one of my favorites. Bail Organa. Did you guys talk much last week about how he handles the very end? He says something like, we need more time. Basically, he wants to try to stay and keep moving the chess pieces in the Senate before. But then at the very end, he is on Yavin, so he's there in secret, I'm assuming. Is that kind of what you guys...
Well, if I remember the order of things, he says that to Mon before she gives her speech, right? So the speech might have blown things up. You know, the speech might have truncated his time there. You know, like, because I think his idea is basically the rebellion's version of what I was saying of like, keep the Senate, keep them playing because we're building a Death Star. And like his version of that for the rebellion is, I'm going to keep playing Senate while we build the rebellion, you know?
Right.
So I think he probably wound up on Yavin quicker because of what she said.
Right.
Here's the quote I pulled from Rogue One that makes me think maybe he played it a little bit longer. So it's in the same conversation where Mon asks him to go recruit Obi-Wan. Right before that, he says, I must return to Alderaan to inform my people there will be no peace. That's after she says the war is an inevitable thing. So if he can go to his home planet, well, here's the question. Nick, maybe you just answered it. Maybe we just figured out the whole thing. It's known that he's going to Alderaan. It's known by the Empire that he's in on this rebellion thing, and that's why they tested on Alderaan. Because they're like, screw it, we're just going to do the whole thing. He's going to go and tell his planet that there's going to be no peace. That has to be why Gilroy wrote that in the first place, right? In Rogue One. Like, giving reason to blow up Alderaan.
Is there a novel or a book about this?
I'm sure.
Greg over on YouTube says it's a year later before Bail's on Yavin, so that much time has passed.
But that would put a year between episode 11 and 12.
What? Was there a time jump between those? I thought they were pretty much...
Yeah, they were pretty much...
butt to butt.
Yeah, because he's on Yavin in 12, and 11 and 12 is, like 24 hours.
That could have... Yeah, and that could have been a story.
Claire D saying in the patron chat here? What is this? 67 years old.
Oh man, when he says I'm going to Alderaan and Rogue One, I remember our theater was like, no, don't go.
It's like in a horror movie when you tell the person not to go in the basement.
Yeah, he's got to get it. Yeah.
I mean, that has to be the whole reason for all of it. The reason why he says, I need a little more time. And then he ends up on Yavin anyway in Andor. And then he says out loud, I'm going to Alderaan to inform my people that there will be no peace. I'm going to go there and say it's wartime. And then they blow it up in A New Hope.
Yep.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
I mean,
that's new. That's like added incentive because in A New Hope, it's because that's where Leia's from, right? But then we find out through other media that she's adopted by Bail. They live in Alderaan. Like, it's the beauty of all of this is just keeping everything intact for the most part, and just making it all better.
And that lines up even more with Tarkin's thing about fear will keep the local systems in line.
Right.
They're like doing it in person. Like, oh, well, here's an example of how this is going to work. I'm going to bring this girl here, and she's going to watch us blow up her dad and her whole planet. And she's going to be scared as shit. So even if we know for sure that she's a part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor, it's like, we're just going to scare the shit out of her right now.
Sure.
And it's like in, like pick any movie about like a hitman or somebody coming for revenge. They don't kill that last person when they just slay a whole group of whatever. It's like, go back and tell the rest of your crew about this.
Right. Boba Fett literally does that. I think there's a point of that too. I mean, you remember Yularen is in the original like board meeting with Vader, right? So you
Mhm.
if you're ISB, we saw how hard the ISB is cross referencing everything, right? So for me, if I'm in intelligence, I would be like, I want you to pull up the last 30 days of every time Mon Mothma walks into the Senate, walks into the chamber, who does she meet with the most? It's going to be Bail Organa every time, right? So I think there's definitely they're smart enough to be able to figure out, okay, cool. Then suddenly Bail's gone too. Like,
Right.
okay, where's he from? Well, we know that he's got people on Alderaan. He's got a kid on Alderaan. Send a message. Makes sense to me.
God, dude.
They're evil.
And then
So
the
good.
wildest thing happens. That kid on Alderaan is Darth Vader's daughter.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.
That's crazy.
It
That's
is so
crazy.
soap opera
Spoiler
when
alert.
you think about it like that.
Spoilers. It is spoilers. So let's get to Saw Gerrera. You're
Yeah,
here.
let's talk about this, Mike.
You're here. You're ready to fight. The thing about Saw Gerrera is you got to appreciate a guy who's consistent. He's high. He is super high, but you got to appreciate that he's consistent. You
When
got
the
to remember
Rhino hits.
with the Rhino kid. Clone Wars, Rogue One, Rebels, Jedi Fallen Order, Andor. Like, I mean, he has been incredibly consistent in terms of going like he has been forged in the fire. You got to appreciate that for what it is. You remember that Onderon and the rebellion, the rebels of Onderon, were trained by Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Captain Rex, Ahsoka Tano. So already from this point, they are trained by Jedi who deemed that Onderon was not their fight. So here you are, you're a guy who's like, oh, we're going up against separatists. The Jedi are here. Thank goodness. The Jedi are like, hold up, pal. I need you to go do this, right? So he's already like chip on my shoulder. You got these guys with laser swords here, and they're not going to help us out. Okay, sounds good. So already like you're crusty. Goes into the leader that they go into to fight, right? Ramsey, I think Ramses, who is a pacifist in nature, who essentially gets overruled by the separatists, right? So already he sees that peace is a lie, all of this thing, they are not going to respect your terms of engagement, right? That's what it is. Okay. Then his sister gets killed after she's named the leader, which he's frustrated about. She gets killed because of this mission to rescue this pacifist who's basically like screws him up from there. And at this point, this dude is like, I am ready to fight everybody. I don't like the Jedi. The rebels don't do anything. They politic while I sit here and lose people. Everything about Saw Gerrera represents the mirror of the Empire, that he is willing to change the goalposts because he sees that they're moving them much faster than the rebellion wants to admit. So the idea of Rhydonium being this fuel of his manicness, I think is actually a brilliant thing, because in the same way the Empire is constantly looking for power, Rhydonium for him is his power to be able to fight back. It's an awesome thing that he is literally high on his own supply. I like this for a lot of different reasons, but Saw has been incredibly consistent as a character of kind of seeing when someone almost gets tunnel vision based on their background and their surrounding. In some ways, he's actually very similar to Cassian Andor.
But just activated 100% from like, I guess his late teens, early 20s, whenever it was, you know?
It's like, are him and Luthen basically the same character, just on the opposite side of the fence?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that was basically the point.
They both don't accept any new facts into their view, you know?
Right.
Sure. Sure.
What I loved about the finale was how, and I said this before we started up, it really just fully tees up Rogue One on so many levels, including the whole point of the mission at the beginning, when Cassian and Mon and Jin are talking about going to see Saw, regaining his trust, to get, information from this pilot about the Death Star. It was one scene. It was a little bit of dialogue in the finale about Saw's totally off the map. He doesn't trust anyone. It's screwed. They're talking about the Death Star then, whether or not it's real, blah, blah, blah. Saw has some information, and that goes straight in. It's like they've, just in that downtime between the third and fourth blocks, he's even more screwed up. He's missing a leg. He's literally insane by that point. And then that tees up Rogue One, which makes all of the Borgullet shit and all the "they sent you to kill me" stuff make perfect sense.
Right.
It's beautiful. God, it's so good. I just love. There's
Borgullet.
People always talk about prequels are kind of, you can't make a good prequel. It's a cop out. Blah blah blah. I couldn't disagree more. To me, it's like a version of the old that little square game with the panels or with the squares, and you move them around to rearrange them to make the picture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Getting everything to fit and weave it together. I'm thinking season 7 finale, series finale of the Clone Wars.
Right.
All these cool stories that you can find by focusing on other people and how they intertwine in this giant galaxy, and there are all these layers and different facets and things. And I think it's so cool when Gilroy gets to do something that's not so different from what Lucas did with the prequels, bringing his own story up to the beginning of something from 10 years ago. It's so sick.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy.
Yeah. And too, I mean, just the who he has interacted with along the line of the rebellion. I mean, he has been turned down by Jedi. He has fought on Kashyyyk alongside Cal Kestis. And it's all been done by Forrest Whitaker, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is unbelievably cool to be quite possibly now might be the most decorated Star Wars character across media. Because he's been in animated, he's been in video games, he's been in live action, and he's been referenced in books. Which
in terms of a video game that is actually like a canon story, he's one of the few, right?
Right. So that's kind of because he's been in 2 animated shows and the video game, and now in live action, he's been in the series and the movie. So like Saw Gerrera might actually be the widest net of any Star Wars character at this point, played by the same character.
Because he's at least up there with like the core characters.
Right.
Well, I mean, think about it from this perspective. I mean, I don't think Mark Hamill has been Luke Skywalker in any video game.
Was there not a portion of Saw and Rebels that wasn't right? Didn't someone else voice him in something?
I don't know.
It wasn't what's his name the whole time, right?
I think it is. I think it's been Forrest Whitaker the whole time. Someone look it up. This is a good debate. Hot debate.
Go into IMDb.
Hot debate.
Forrest Whitaker.
Was he in Rebels? Oh, look at this. What do we think, chat? What's going on here?
My favorite Forrest Whitaker role is still Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah. Panic Room, Jodie Foster. Let's see, what do we got?
Or did he...
Andrew Cascino.
And they brought him in for like the final season or something like
that? The young Saw Gerrera?
Was the other guy.
Yeah. But interesting. Dang. I thought
Fallen Order, he did the voice.
Yeah, so maybe that's
Rebels,
what I was thinking
he did the voice in 4 episodes.
Okay.
And Rogue One.
So he didn't do any Clone Wars, which would make sense because he's younger in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Still pretty...
I mean, testament to
pretty
Rebels
good.
Finishing strong and someone finally convincing him like, hey, man, people love this shit. You should come do the voice.
Okay, I'll be there.
The vice president is a delight, sir. We already kind of dipped into this this Gilroy effect thing, adding this depth to the 50 years of films and animation.
Mm-hmm.
So do you just want to get right to the dirty shit, or what? Just want to get right in the stew?
We're gonna keep it to under an hour, so we're gonna get into what we've already seen. I mean, I think from the perspective of what it is, looking at it now, is that there is, now that we're getting so much more about it, the Art of Andor comes out in March. I shared this, the graphic designers who worked on the show, incredible work. The part where you look at this, and of course the discourse is there of people saying, oh, well, I wish this was that guy, I wish that, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, this was the most expensive project Star Wars has ever done since Disney Plus. They were building sets. They were going to different locations. Like, they filmed the entire Mandalorian and Grogu movie only in Southern California. We have not left the single location. They've been in Manhattan Beach and a couple other spots, but like, they didn't leave Southern California, which is amazing in its own right. But I think from this perspective of going, my point to this is that Star Wars fans need to remind themselves that, like, we were eating good between Rogue One, Andor Season 1, Andor Season 2. We're eating good. If we do not appreciate other Star Wars for all the various kinds of storytelling that exists within it, I think Disney is going to take, as they do to Nick's point, traditionally, they will take the wrong message from that. And if everyone just sits there and review bombs everything that comes out from the future, because right now Star Wars fans are still watching everything that comes out under the title of Star Wars. But what is the worry now is that they will see it only through the lens of it's not as good as Andor. And that is my concern moving forward, because of course you already start to hear it. I'm nervous about the movie. I'm nervous about everything Filonious. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're turning on George's own apprentice, which now makes it seem like the fan base is actually the Sith. So it's something to think about, because I think as we look forward to all of these things in the future, Disney could very easily just straight up turn Star Wars into Dune. And are you excited about Dune 3? I don't even remember what happened at the end of Dune 2, and I loved it.
Well, it's
like
got
that you know what I mean?
Money, right? Which is
What's
like that? Just success has to do with money. Like, critical acclaim is cool, but at the end of the day, if they can't really quantify a box office for Andor, but they did quantify the budget, how could they say it was worth it? Like,
yeah,
that's where it's difficult. Like, in our world of podcasting, we know too much, and we know what matters because Disney owns it. It's not George Lucas. Disney needs it to make a lot of money. So if this is going to be something that they put like in a basket of like got critical acclaim, maybe it actually wins awards, who knows, like that could go either way.
Right.
Maybe they're happy with that, but if it's the most expensive Star Wars they've ever made, and I can't imagine merchandising is good for Andor, like
right.
Like there's probably, like, maybe they'll just be happy with this being critically acclaimed, or you would love for them to take the right the right things out of it and be like, oh, Star Wars fans can appreciate something more serious, so maybe we can make things more serious, maybe not all serious, like we'll see. I don't know. I don't trust Disney to make the right decision, but my interesting take, what you said towards the beginning of this, like worrying about Favreau and Filoni, how did Tony Gilroy come in and have more clout than Jon Favreau? Like, how, like, if there was this budget to make what we just watched, why did Favreau have to invent, like Favreau and Filoni invent a soundstage to do Star Wars on the cheap, basically?
Mm-hmm.
They created a brand new legacy character in season 1, 2 of them really, with Mando and Grogu, but Grogu is like the moneymaker. why didn't they just have a blank check for season 2 and 3? You know, like, well, how did Tony Gilroy come in and be like, this is what we're doing and we're doing it this way? Like, who's Tony Gilroy compared to the person who, like, compared to Jon Favreau and Filoni, who have done Star Wars already? Like, that's my biggest question is, like, just because he did Born Identity and Mike, whatever the other thing
Michael
is,
Clayton.
yeah, Michael Clayton. I'm like, why did
He-
he come in and actually have more say over, like, we're doing it this way than Favreau
From
does?
my understanding, Tony Gilroy has been a shadow director of a couple different projects. It's not uncommon for a director to basically call another person who goes uncredited and helps them just put things out. Tony Gilroy has had, I mean, he essentially, if you're Kathleen Kennedy and you go, okay, Gareth Edwards got us to this point and there's something wrong with it. And Gareth Edwards, according to whatever resource on the internet, which we have no idea if it's true or not, Gareth Edwards actually reached out to Tony Gilroy, who he's worked with before, and said, could you come and help me with this? In some ways, Tony Gilroy saved Rogue One from being another movie that people complain about with under the Star Wars brand. So I think from that perspective, Kathleen Kennedy knew that Tony Gilroy getting involved meant that he was going to probably make something that was going to capture the attention of a lot of the critics in that sense, which I get from that standpoint, because if you save Rogue One and make it so that it's critically consistently talked about in a positive light, I can see why she was like, okay, sounds good. He also had great recommendations too. Saying, I want the production designer from, Chernobyl. I want this person. I want this person. Like, he had a pretty strong vision for what he wanted it to be. And I think at some point, Jon Favreau was pulled in too many directions at that point, because he was also doing Jungle Book. I'm sorry, he was doing Jungle Book. He was doing Lion King. Like, the dude has stayed incredibly busy during this process, and Tony Gilroy just had a stronger vision for what he wanted it to be. But that's also why they decided to change it.
That's definitely a thought in my head, is that Andor was probably more flushed out. I mean, clearly it was, like, fleshed out, like, to the point where it was, like, undeniable.
Right.
And maybe Favreau and Filoni are just, like, comparatively, to use a bad term, comparatively winging it a little bit too much. Like maybe they don't have everything. Like, if Andor is like, here's 2 seasons of perfect television, and then you read it and you're like, yeah, that's perfect. Maybe everything else is too, like, loosey goosey.
Which is very network TV. That's how you get six seasons of Lost, and you're like, what happened here?
Yeah.
But I think go ahead, Nick. Sorry, Adam.
I think it's a lot simpler. I would guess it's a lot simpler. I mean, they're doing different things. They're just doing different things. And, like, a record label can sign, like, you can sign
Island Records,
like,
has everybody on it.
Yeah, like Warner Brothers to, you can sign any label. You can do Lady Gaga, you can do Meshuggah, right? They're doing different things. It's not that drastic between the two, but they have their strengths. They're appealing to different segments of the quadrant, of the 4-quadrant spectrum that you're trying to hit. And Disney and Kathleen Kennedy have great relationships with all of them. They've worked together in different capacities. Jon Favreau is all in on this technology stuff. I don't think it was like, you have to develop this volume thing or it's not going to work. He's been into that since the beginning. It was George's dream. He was about that. That's his strength. Let him go with his strength. Let him create these characters that are going to appeal to this segment of the demographic spread. Tony Gilroy, again, to your thing about, ghost directing, ghost producing. Kathleen Kennedy produced the Bourne movies, executive produced them.
Right.
She's not credited on IMDb, but she has that relationship. She worked with him. They have a long time working relationship. She let him cook. She let Favreau cook and bring their strengths to their different versions of Star Wars. And that gives them ultimately what I keep saying, like, they have to do because you cannot please everyone. It's just like impossible. It's too big. It spans too many generations. We're talking about 5 generations, like 70 years of age range, you know? If you
Uh,
think about it, like it's impossible to please everyone. So they instead have to just try to make all these different versions work until they feel like they have a box office success, a viable box office success that they can run with, because the movie industry is so screwed. They
right.
have to spend the same amount on marketing as they spend on production because they're competing with TikTok. That's
Well,
what where the movie industry is.
you're right. The other thing that I would think is compare them like this. The Mandalorian is Disney Star Wars.
Hmm.
Andor was Star Wars. There is no call for Bix, Andor, Luthen Rail, anybody walking around at Galaxy's Edge. The timeline for Galaxy's Edge is all screwed up now. You got Luke Skywalker walking around, you got Book of Boba Fett walking around. It doesn't make any sense anymore, right? And that's fine because they want those attractions. But you can like it almost seems in some ways when you're like Kathleen Kennedy let Jon Favreau cook. I actually think too many people got involved with Jon Favreau. And I'm saying that from like the frustration of Disney wanting to go, okay, we're gonna, we want to make them $1 billion on this, because even at this point, terrible movies, DC has somehow made $1 billion with half of these terrible movies they keep putting out with C to B level superheroes. And I'm incredibly excited for Superman because it's going to be kind of like a restart for a lot of this. But from that standpoint, I think, like, I read a comment on Reddit today of some guy was like, man, how come Obi-Wan couldn't have looked as good as they made Andor look, right? And I'm sitting here being like, buddy, you can't even compare the two of them because Obi-Wan was filmed over COVID. You have most of the money tied up. Like, Ewan McGregor is probably the most expensive person in the franchise.
Hmm.
So you have a budget for that. You also have the fact that you have a director of cinematography that the volume was so new that there were people who didn't even know how it worked yet, and they were expected to be shooting on it. This
Right.
technology came out a year before. You've got the DP for Old Boy, who's like a traditional DP in the sense of like weird camera angles that probably wouldn't have worked in Star Wars. And then all of a sudden you go, hey, by the way, the background moves when you shoot it. I'm sitting here being like, these aren't even, they seem like they're under Star Wars together, but like, they're just, I don't know. All that to be said, the thing that I am worried about is how people are going to view every project within Star Wars from here. And I'm saying this as a term of going like suspending disbelief, all of these things. But maybe it's actually, it is going to happen
because of our world, because of social media, because of podcasting, because of commenting, because of engagement. It's going to constantly happen. Like,
It's inevitable.
Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, you know?
Have you tried? Depends on the toothpaste.
I've actually tried.
If you get it cold, it actually is much easier to go back into the tube. I just think for a standpoint, I hope that we don't lose that, because as I said, if adults take Star Wars and forget that Skeleton Crew is a great jumping on point, just like Andor is a great jumping on point for people who thought they didn't like Star Wars. I hope there's a way we can navigate all this, because it does make me fearful for the Mandalorian Grogu because of this.
I think it's Nick, you're right. The toothpaste is out of the tube, and I mean that when you say that. I don't know if you mean just like culturally in general, like where we are. Like everyone has a voice in the internet, including a bunch of adolescent boys. Like the worst shit comes from adolescent boys.
Well,
All the shit that made me turn off the comments was these ignorant little teenage pieces of shit and the grown-up versions of them. You don't see a bunch of young girls talking shit like this on the internet, saying this is shit, this is the worst thing ever. Telling Kathleen Kennedy to literally kill herself, like that's adolescent boy, white kid mad at the world for no good reason type shit. Like that's just where we are. Social media has destroyed everything. in social discourse and entertainment, because now films, cinema, that has to compete with social media for attention. It's so dumb. All these things are preying on our most base, like lizard brain instincts. It's all about capturing attention. It's an unwinnable thing. We're going to be fighting this fight forever. It sucks.
And the
So
failure of media literacy is also on display here.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
just I just think of Dave Filoni. He said it at Celebration, and I'm trying to find it on my phone here. I mean, he just basically said exactly what we are always talking about. I'm not gonna find it.
But I would say from this point, like, I am excited about Starfighter. I'm excited about Ryan
Yeah, I'm
Key's.
excited about it all.
I'm excited about Ryan Key's point that, like, Ryan Gosling must have liked the script, because for a guy who's basically in demand, he doesn't need Star Wars. It means that the script was probably pretty good. Sean Levy's a strong director of this genre of entertainment in film. Is the Dawn of the Jedi going to be take this tone? Does it have to? I think it does, right?
I can imagine it being somewhere in the middle, somewhere between. You know,
Because
just
I would love to see if we're are we doing this? We're gonna have a different episode where we're gonna talk about stories that we'd love to see in the Gilroy style.
I like that.
Sure.
That would be a good episode. Yeah, I'm excited for it, but I'm just saying, as a cautionary tale, May 21st, when this comes out, look back on this episode and say, we warned you. But maybe the warning, maybe I'm talking to the Senate,
I think
and the
that
Senate doesn't hear us.
I think what is really being said by anyone who's like, this is what Star Wars should be, or this is the best Star Wars, I'll just put it this way. Anyone saying that this is the best Star Wars, yes, it is, but what is the best about it? Like, all you're really asking is for the stakes to be higher, and the stakes to be written better, and the stakes to be like acted better. Like, all you're asking for is stakes. You don't want like the end. You don't want a Mandalorian
Adam's
episode to
vegan.
be 27 minutes, and you find out in minute 1 what the deal is, and in minute 27 it's done. You know,
Right.
like, what we want is stakes, and like, that was the best thing that Tony Gilroy brought to Star Wars, was stakes and the drama behind it. Like, and not for nothing, we only got 24 episodes of this. It's not like it's some extremely long form, like, seed that he planted that we had to wait years and years and years. Like, I guess in reality, it was about 9 years between Rogue One and both of these seasons. But like, really what he did was bring stakes to the table, and it was written and acted correctly, like, written and acted well. Like, I think all we're asking for as Star Wars fans is add that to The Mandalorian. You don't necessarily have to make it unfun, but make the stakes and the like, there's no like, there's not too many like situations where you have to question, like, is this right, is this wrong, like, why are they wearing that, blah blah blah. Like, there's too many things like that we pick apart in Mandalorian and Boba and all this stuff, where it's like, all we need is to feel more. We want more stakes. Like, we as Star Wars nerds get to add the stakes and get to add the heaviness to everything because of everything that we know.
Mhm.
But all that Tony did was put all of that on screen. Like, we know Ahsoka is heavy because of Anakin and Clone Wars and all this stuff. But like, imagine we got 50-minute episodes and we got 24 of them explaining, I mean, I know Clone Wars exists, but like, imagine in not a Tony Gilroy style, but the like excellence of Tony Gilroy adding stakes and writing it correctly. Imagine how good Ahsoka and Anakin in live action would be.
But does
here's the thing.
does that lose that audience that doesn't need it to? I mean, could you
I don't
see
know.
Nemec's speech out of a guy who wears a helmet the whole time?
Yeah, I don't know.
Here's the thing. I don't agree that the other things don't have stakes. I think it's a different style. I like the stakes are there. It's like how it's written, whether or not you feel it the same way, yes, but like I mean, going back to the beginning, like the stakes have always been like the fate of the entire galaxy, like a father and son, whether or not the son can kill his father. It's always been this insane stuff. It's just like we as adults want it written like shows for adults now. Some of us. Some of us aren't willing to see things that are literally made for kids. And the infuriating irony is that people talk about how great Rebels is, and this and Rebels is the next to Young Jedi Adventures and Resistance, it's the most like child style show. It's got the pace of a Cartoon Network show. It's got the acting of a Cartoon Network show. It's got the exposition of a Cartoon Network show. It's like it's for kids straight up. It is like it's little kid shit, but it's about a time period that we all connect to because it's the original stuff, and I think that's why. And I think most of us just don't know how to articulate our feelings about things. Either we literally don't know how to handle our emotions, or slash or, not ANDOR,
Nice.
don't know anything about writing and filmmaking when it really comes down to it, and production, and people just like it's like they feel something that they don't know how to explain. They aren't quite fulfilled for some reason, and they have to point a finger at somebody. They have to say that something sucks. It's like they can't say something's good without saying that something else sucks. And that's the shit that in the comments infuriated me. And it took me a long time to realize this. It took this podcast to like really put it into focus to me. Like, what is the point of wasting the air or the space on the page, on the phone, the movement of your hands to even say, yeah, this is great. It's like way better than all that other shit that sucks. Why can't you just say this is great? I'm talking to everyone who's listening. Why can't you just say this is great? Period. Send. What is the fucking point of anything beyond that? I'm so fucking sick of people. Like, I could fight a 14-year-old boy right now. I'm so sick of this shit. It's never going to change. It's pointless for me to get this upset. But it's so dumb. And we're such a spoiled culture. Like, Mike, you keep saying this is a golden age of Star Wars. We're getting more shit right now. Like, if Disney hadn't bought Lucasfilm, we wouldn't have Galaxy's Edge. We wouldn't have any of this amazing shit. Well, you just want to sit with those original 6 movies that half of you hate and just say that's all the Star Wars we ever get, and then a bunch of
we
weird
love
books
them
from the
now.
90s?
Remember, we
like,
love
it's
them now.
It's just insane. Like, no one can appreciate. Like, we're so spoiled, like a bunch of little asshole children, and I'm so sick of it. So, like, yeah, we can try to come up with explanations, but I think ultimately we're just all little spoiled shitheads.
Let's leave it at that. And this will actually be the
Physics
last
Buddy Joe's,
episode.
quoting Nick, imagine enjoying the things you enjoy. There it is. Just imagine that.
Say the
Come on,
thing.
you can
Yeah.
go, that's pretty cool.
Say the thing.
And just move on.
Before we go, everyone knows that I'm a fan of the eyes without a face. Okay. And I got 2 of them because this is a visual podcast. Okay. I got 2 new ones that showed up in the mail last week, but I didn't get to talk about it because we're all Andor. But look at what we got.
Nice.
That's a good one.
She's no Jedi.
Rebel style, right?
Clone Wars.
Yo, how about the official Star Wars account posting, I think it was a video game of Darth Jar Jar? Did you see that?
That was crazy.
That's nuts.
No. What video game?
Last week. Yeah, it was a video
It's
game
on
with
Fortnite.
Fortnite, that's what it is. Is that not a video game?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't know if I was appropriating what Fortnite is, but
Right. It's actually a classic of
footage from the Star Wars account.
I mean, between that and Lego Star Wars, maybe we'll get Jar Jar's end of life actually completely rewritten, because there was that canon book, right, where he ended up just like homeless in the street as like a jester, disgraced, whatever. What if that gets rewritten and
we can rewrite?
And
we can
and
rewrite
he's like Darth Maul.
I think we're on that course.
It's nice. Yeah. That's nice. Well, we have things coming up that are exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that we're geeked about for our buddy Ryan Key. We are almost to yellow card release for new music. Adam, what's up with your band?
I'm leaving Thursday to go record the last 4 songs to finish our record.
Oh my gosh.
Dan just finished vocals today or yesterday. Came back today.
Wow.
Things are moving.
And then Nick, you get to go back on tour with Bayside for the second leg of
About
the
2
tour.
weeks. Yeah, about 2 weeks. Hitting West Coast and Denver and Salt Lake City, Pacific Northwest, Phoenix, Vegas, Austin.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular venue you're most excited about playing? You love them all.
Here in Anaheim. So shows are selling very well. 2 shows selling very well. And
Nice.
Anaheim's a hometown show at this point. So it's great.
I love it. And then we have Mosh Isley, which is great because the whole crew is going to be in Mosh Isley for San Diego Comic-Con. We are awaiting to hear if we're going to do a panel with our dear friends in the Dad Batch. We're waiting to hear if we got approved for a panel, which will be very fun. And check out their latest episode of with talking with the people from Space Dive. We had a great time in Detroit. I highly suggest everyone go listen to that to hear what exactly those weirdos down in Detroit are doing, because if you are missing an interactive Star Wars experience, Space Dive was a lot of fun. So moshisley.com to get tickets, get your bundles in. I spent a lot of time designing this merch. Go get those bundles, people. It is Jedi themed. Start thinking about your costume. We have been going back and forth about our costumes. We want to see it. Make sure your lightsaber is charged for a very specific thing. We're all going to leave it at that. And yeah, we'd love to see you on our Discord too. Adam, how do people sign up for our Discord?
Oh, you go to patreon.com/thankthemakerpod or just thankthemakerpod.com if you can't remember the other thing. And if you do that, and if you're a patron, then you can hear cool things like this bonus segment for patrons only, where we're going to go through all of our favorite Easter eggs from all of Andor, the Den of Antiquities. We're going to build kind of the master list along with the patrons. They're going to bring all their favorites, and we're going to review that, whether it's in a full episode or we make a YouTube clip out of it or whatever. We're going to hang out with them immediately after pressing stop for the rest of the world. And you can be one of those people. Patreon.com/thankthemakerpod.
Speaking of which, when it comes to bring it out to the world, Roosevelt's finally, after many months of deliberation, Adam, you're rocking the Tracker Keeper version.
Yeah.
Which I love. The hats are crispy. Nick is also rocking one of the May the 4th collections. We have a discount code for you.
We do.
We're going to drop it over in our Discord to check out and then blast it out to the rest of the internet.
We'll do that next week for the rest of the world.
How's that sound?
Hit Discord with it first.
Bingo.
Bingo bango. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Sorry for cussing so much. Can't help it. And patrons, we'll see you in just a minute. Everyone else, until then, may the Force be with you. Thank the Maker is produced by Adam Russell and Jason Chiodo, and edited by Jason Chiodo. If you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, and more. Our patrons literally make Thank the Maker possible.